Welcome everybody to our 5th session of the Utah Wing Communications Conference and Training. We appreciate you being here tonight. I'm going to cover just a few things of housekeeping, and then I'll turn the time over to Major Collette. Tonight we will be having training by Lieutenant Colonel Hess regarding the new SpotX tracker devices that will be going into all of our aircraft. And then following his training, I will do some training on using the WMIRS Comm log and how that integrates with the new SpotX messages. If you have any questions or problems, up in the right-hand corner, there is a Q&A icon. You can click on that and send messages to me. And if it's a technical problem, I'll see if I can help you. If it's a question for Colonel Hess or even Major Collette, because we're going to have him hang on for a little bit, then I can pass that on to them and they can answer that question. So over to you, Major Collette.
Thanks, and good evening, everybody. And we really appreciate the turnout we've been getting on the communications training sessions over the last few weeks. Some of you may know that we are required to hold an annual communications training conference in the wing. And obviously, because of the COVID situation, we haven't been able to do those in-person meetings as we'd like. And so Major Dave Rhodes has put together this curriculum and lined up some great presenters to do a series of 1-hour presentations on communications-related activities. Tonight is number 5, and we're delighted to have Lieutenant Colonel Jason Hess with us tonight. When I first met Colonel Hess, he was probably Director of Operations for Utah Wing. I was a retread coming back into CAP and needed to get my mission scanner and mission observer signed off, and so they shanghaied me to fly with Colonel Hess on one of the search sorties on that week-long Fillmore search. And I had to work hard, but I did get my mission scanner, mission observer signed off. Following that, Colonel Hess became Deputy Commander, Vice Commander of Utah Wing for the last 4 years. And for those of you that have not yet seen the announcement, he is Colonel Select. Jason Hess will become Colonel Hess this Saturday, April 3rd, at the change of command ceremony, where he will take the banner of Utah Wing as the new Utah Wing Commander. So Colonel Hess, we thank you for your service as Vice Commander and just wish you great success, which we know you'll have as a Utah Wing Commander come Saturday. Following Colonel Hess, Lieutenant Michael Dyck will take us through the WMIRS Comm log. It's something that has a few nuances to it, but when done well, provides just a great record, and sometimes can become a lingual record of the chronological activities that take place on an exercise or on a search. And so please pay attention to go through the WMIRS Comm log. Lieutenant Dyck serves as Assistant Emergency Services Officer for Utah Wing, and also the Assistant Director of IT for Utah Wing. It's the and both capabilities are some that I leverage probably every week to solve one problem or another. And so I really appreciate working with both of these gentlemen. And I'm happy to turn the baton over to Colonel Select Hess.
Well, this ought to be fun. Thank you, Major Collette, for the warm introduction. I probably deserved half of it. The fact is any success born by the wing is certainly on the shoulders of all the volunteers, including yourselves, that make the successes happen within the organization as a whole, but certainly Utah as a premier force to be reckoned with, and communications is one of our superior missions. And so I do want to encourage you as we go through the dialogue here about the new spot devices that we've brought into the wing, for you to leverage that Q&A function. We'll see how well it works, but as much as I'd really love to be in person so that we could have a more interactive dialogue, we'll see if we can make the technology work the best. So I'll start off. My part's actually going to be probably the shorter of the two. So I'll just walk out now and save everybody the trouble. Just kidding. Those of you online, you probably recognize the old spot device. This is actually my personal device. I bought it after we instituted spots a number of years ago in operations. They became a very significant boon to our operational capability of tracking our assets in the various and rugged terrain of Utah during missions. As Major Collette has improved the distribution of repeaters throughout the wing, and as we get ready to roll out Ready Ops, we've only begun to enhance even further those capabilities of being able to basically communicate with our air crews and our aircraft and ground crews in a more robust way. So the improvements are only continuing to come, but some of you may have remembered that we toyed with the idea of getting a different type of tracker that gave us two-way satellite communications as a backup to the FM communication network that exists both on ground and air-based assets within the wing. And more recently, Major Collette brought to our consideration at the wing level the opportunity for the SpotX devices. And after we did a cost basis or a cost analysis, it turned out that these old ones are non-preferred by the Spot network at this point. They're turning into a device they'd rather out mode, but they know that they're pretty heavily used throughout their network. But to do so, they incentivized moving towards new devices. So the SpotX device. Now, side by side, they don't look terribly different, right? I'm kidding. There's some significant differences, and we'll talk about them. But I wanted to cover the essentials first. I'm sure there's a few air crew on this conference, and this discussion will be very pertinent from the operational perspective for you guys. But it's very essential for those that are going to be operating in the comms units to understand how these units are still working as well. So, quick review of the old, right? We just would simply turn on the on button, and then as we launched, we would certainly use the tracking button, and then we had the check-in button, right? We had the OK button, and we would use that to do ops normals calls during mission tempo. Those functions all exist on the new devices, and they're not terribly difficult to find. So the power button is up here on the upper right corner. Hopefully that's flipped on your screen, and you should see the screen lighting up. There's the big difference. Hit the button again, you get yourself a backlight. It has a full QWERTY keyboard, and we'll discuss kind of those features as we go along. But the tracker footprint button, same functionality. Hold it for 3 seconds, voila, we've got the same tracking capability. The check-in is on the screen, so I'll try to make this possible. You may have to zoom in or grab your magnifying glass, but the screen functions are fairly straightforward, and the beauty about the Spot device is they worked really hard to make it as idiot-proof and monkey-proof as possible. It still has a lot of functionality, but it gives the crews easy ways to access the menus. But as we scroll over here to the far right on the screen on the top row, there's the check-in button. Same functionality as the OK button as on the old devices. So there we are, basic functionality to get us right back where we were. Now the beauty about the SpotX is that it is rechargeable as opposed to the AAAs that were used in the old device. So we had to unscrew the back. So they are rechargeable through a USB device. Bottom corner, they do come with a USB cable. We'll talk about what the expectation is for air crew in a little bit. They're fairly decent on the battery life. I haven't really tested it to end. I haven't left it on for 2 or 3 days, but I know it will run really well for a long period of time, as long as we're not sending a whole lot of messages. But like I said, I don't know if the QA function's working, but if you have a question at this point, send it, but I'm going to keep going. Let's see here. The beauty about the SpotX, it is a two-way communications device now. It communicates over the satellite network that Spot uses. This is a huge advantage over the old devices where it was really more one way, right? We would decide as an operational group, or the IC would determine, or the comms unit would determine what's an acceptable use for the check-in and ops normal calls, whatever. Now we have the capability for the communication units to communicate to these devices. But it's very important that our crews are paying attention to these devices during the mission. Now, that's not to saying that an observer should do nothing but stare at a screen. Please don't do that, but be cognizant of the fact that there is an opportunity for us to be able to send messages from the ICP or the communications unit to these devices, okay? So, couple other housekeeping items. We've procured secure mounts for the aircraft that will go with the Spot devices. They're made by RAM, so they're very high quality. We have a short arm and we have a clamp that will clamp to the yoke of the observer side of the aircraft, to the passenger observer side. It's a very simple process to link in the Spot device into that mount, okay? Pop that up, has a nice little roller, fits right in there. We expect that we will train all of the air crew, especially the observers and scanners, in the proper mounting of this yoke mount. Reason being is we want to make sure these devices are both secure, but also not creating a problem for the safe operation of the aircraft. The beauty is the door for the battery is accessible when it's in the mount. This is a micro USB cable. It is directional. It must be put in the right way. Please do not force it. If it does not go in, that means you're going upside down. Please be cautious and careful. On the other end, the wing is procured 12-volt cigarette port lighter or cigarette lighter port charging devices. Very high quality Anchor. I'm sure those of you that are in the tech world know what Anchor is. These can be used to power this device and charge in the aircraft using the 12-volt aircraft system. But we also want to make sure that the crews know not to rig these things in such a way that it impedes the ability for the pilot to safely operate the aircraft. I'm making, hopefully that's making clear our expectations, right? We want to safely mount, we want to safely secure, but we also want to safely power and safely ensure that the pilot's not impeding his ability to operate the aircraft in any attitude. Does the SpotX signal receipt of a message? Let's see, Tom Hawkins. It does receive messages as well as send. Okay, so it is a two-way device. Hopefully that answers your question, Tom. Let's see. So rechargeable, mountable, runnable via ship power, and let's discuss real quick the message capability. So again, basic, we want to ensure that all the crews understand that the same features that existed in the old Spot devices now exist in the new devices, but the enhancement is the ability to send two-way traffic. Now keep in mind, the two-way traffic, if not using, and we'll talk about the predefined messages that have been programmed into these devices, if we're using custom messages, it can come at a cost. So be very prudent about its use. The plan that we have allows us an unlimited number of certain types of messages, the check-in included, the tracking is included, the predefined messages that the comms unit has decided with the director of operations are included. But if you send a custom message, there's a counter, and we'll talk about that a little bit deeper. Again, it looks like Tom figured out the Q&A. If you have other questions, please send them. You're not disrupting us too much, but just want to be clear. So,
Colonel Hess?
Yes, sir.
One thing to let them know, if you respond back to a message that the spot sent, you have a limit of 140 characters.
Right.
So there's a limit on what goes back to them.
So all of you guys that know how to Twitter should be very familiar with the 140 character limit. Don't be a twit. Don't try to type too much. So let's talk a little bit more about these messages. How do you know that a message has been received? Now, I'm in my basement. Unfortunately, I don't have direct access to the sky that's unobscured. The messages are presented on a notification bar on the top, and you'll see a change in some of the menus. To answer another one of Tom's questions that just came up, there is no audible tone. So it has to be something that is in the scan of the mission observer. There is no audible tone. There's no audio output from the spot device that we could relay anywhere else. So the noise of the aircraft certainly precludes the ability that we would probably be able to hear a tone anyway. Next question, do you expect the 12 volt charging cord to be used at all times? Negative. It can be if you feel that there's a problem, or you get to the aircraft and you notice that the battery level's a little low, and we'll talk a little bit about what those indications are. And sorry to be a little scatterbrained. If the battery indication is showing low, it's an opportunity to use it. But if it's a fully charged battery, no, I wouldn't necessarily worry about using the charging cord unless you had to. The beauty is going to be that we're going to want to discuss with the air crew probably as a maintenance officer task, regularly checking the level of these to ensure that they're left at a state that is mission ready. That was the one advantage of the old devices, right? If the battery was low, we had spare batteries in the aircraft in little carriers that you could swap out and you could fix and rectify that situation. But the fact that we can run these from the ship power once it's airborne is a huge advantage for us from a long-term operational perspective. So hopefully that answered your question, Dave. But no, I don't necessarily expect us to be running ship power all the time to these devices, basically on an on-need basis. But the battery indicator, just like your cell phone, upper right corner shows whether it's a full battery charge or not. The flashing LED that shows on the top has also a visual indicator that will show you. So if it's flashing green, that means the battery is above 20%. If it's not flashing at all, that simply means that you've got a full charge. If it goes to flashing red, you're under 20%. If it's solid red, you're in power save mode. So that's an opportunity for the observer to figure out, hey, I either need to charge this or we got to figure out something to do. But this is all part of the manual and the procedures that we'll be discussing in the future with the air crew. So good questions. But again, this is designed not so much to be a burden on the mission observer, and we'll work out obviously checklists and procedures to make sure that the observers are using it, but the functionality itself is very, very similar to the old one if you're keeping it as simple as possible. So really it's going to come down to us having a better mission cadence and training with the observers and the communication unit leaders and the ICP as to deciding how we want to truly use these. So let's talk a little bit quickly about the predefined messages. You navigate through the menu using this center four-way hat switch, if you will. Those of you that are familiar with military joysticks, right? They have a hat switch on the upper portion of the joystick. Same principle, just like your remotes on your TV. You can navigate through by using this four-way directional. Select is in the middle, okay? So as you get to the menu option that you're looking for, press select in the middle. So we'll go messages. Changes it to a very easy to read 3-button configuration. You're primarily going to worry about what's on the upper right, which is predefined. Okay, the communications group has already programmed all of these devices with agreed upon predefined messages that can be sent from this device. So if I click into here, you won't be able to read these so much unless, of course, you're, like I said, staring at your screen and stuck your face in there. But there's several, and I'll just go through a couple. WU. Take a guess as to what that stands for. Wheels up. WD. Wheels down. Let's see. ARR for arrival. DEP for departure. RTB. Actual time of departure, actual time of arrival. All of these are predefined so that as you send them, they're very quick and easy for the communications unit to discern if they're reading that off of the share screen that will probably be talked about a little bit later. But it comes with a timestamp and a position location, right? So we need to make sure that, you know, we're training the crews on how to appropriately use these predefined, but these are unlimited. So as you use the predefined messages, they're unlimited as far as the message traffic going back and forth. So a little bit more enhancement over just the check button, the OK button on the old Spot device. So we have the ability to really tell a different story. The receiving end of these messages, these devices are basically emailable or SMSable from the communication group. And so there'll be a lot more discussion about how to appropriately address messages to these devices. And any of those messages sent count against our counter for our subscription, okay? So we need to be cognizant of the fact that if we're sending one of these messages, it's because we haven't been able to reach you any other way via the FM network or the VHF network in the aircraft, okay? So let's be prudent about that. Let's keep that in mind. But these predefined messages going out from the device back to the communications unit, as long as they're predefined, they're part of our unlimited count. Tracking is now at a 10-minute frequency. The old devices were 5, so you got a little bit more higher resolution when it came to the tracking on the map, but 10 minutes is still going to be very, very adequate for us. So keep that in mind. Back button off to the side, very, very typical nomenclature, a little reverse arrow on it. So you should be very familiar with how to use the back button. So this is tracking up here, back button down here, navigating here. This little flapper door, SOS. I don't think I need to explain what SOS means to communication guys. If I do, let us know. But this little flapper door, if I open this up, there's a SOS red button under here. If you use this, you will create a lot of noise very quickly as soon as that message is received. We've programmed these buttons to first talk to the AFRCC and the NOC. Okay, so if you use this button, it's going to create a national story for Civil Air Patrol. That doesn't mean don't use it. It just means make sure you're using it for the right reason, because we want to make sure that you guys are safe at all times. And if you're feeling in a situation where you are down or you have a need somewhere remotely and you're unable to communicate and it's a dire situation, that SOS button's absolutely something that's available to you. But keep in mind, it's going to AFRCC and the NOC. We'll discuss that a little bit more as we get crews familiar with that. There's additional features, contacts, just like your cell phone. There's the email address pre-programmed into the device so that you can start sending messages if necessary in a custom fashion using the QWERTY keyboard to that particular contact. It's the only contact in the device. Again, I'll admit, I'm an air crew. We need things simple. We don't like to think, we just like to do. So we've put in just the one address that we're going to use. Do FROs have easy access to the wheels up, wheels down, and fixed messages? Yes, they will. We'll discuss the share maps just like we had before. So an FRO that's releasing an aircraft and the Spot device is on, and they're pulling up that map and they're tracking that flight as part of their FRO duties, they should see those messages show up on the map just like they did in the past. So good question, Greg. But yes, absolutely. Yep.
Actually, I think his question might be a little bit different than what you just answered. And I'll talk a little bit about it when I talk about the WMIRS comm log and how we interface with the SpotX messages. But to actually see those wheels up and wheels down, you either will need to watch the comm log for the comm person to put it in, or we'll have you logging into the email account that those messages come to.
Okay, but again, those messages should also show up on the shared map as well, as extra pinpoints that show up. But FROs should still get positive confirmation from their crews when getting information from the air crews. I'm not going to encourage you to use your cell phone in flight. That's technically against regulations. But as they're down and on the ground and safely secured, there's no reason why those couldn't continue. But we'll again work these out a little bit further as we go along. So good question though, Greg. So I'm going to go back. Let's see. So messages, like I said, that's going to be your primary point of start, and then the predefined messages. Select whichever one that you want to select, hit go. So this has arrived. If I hit go, I don't have clear line of sight. It'll say to who. You go over to your contacts, Utah Wing Communications in the drop down. And then what the last thing that Lieutenant Dyck wanted to make sure that I highlighted here was that there's some options along the bottom for different things that can be appended to the message. The one that looks like a compass rose, you want to check that box, and then you want to go ahead and send that message. And what that does is then, like I said, tagging that message to that email, predefined, no custom needing to type in. You hit send, it'll send both your location and timestamp in that message. Let's see, check in again, just reiterating, that's no different than this OK button that's on the side of the old device. It's just an easier way to just navigate to, hit go. Hopefully it doesn't make a liar out of me. Okay, so it's now showing in the upper bar here that it's attempting to send that check-in message, just like the flashing green light that was on the OK button. As soon as it sends the message, then it resets back to tracking. Same principle, but like I said, I'm in my basement. This won't get sent. But that also doesn't count against our unlimited message capability. There's a couple other features that you'll learn about if you'd like as air crew. You can spend some time online. Navigation, you can use compass and trip info and a couple other things. We don't want you goofing around with the settings too much if you can avoid it, because we want to make it easier to use for all the air crew. But get online, certainly look for the SpotX manual. We can send out a link a little bit later directly to that manual, and we'll want you guys to kind of go through it. The quick start guide was literally written as a quick start guide. It said, get out in the open air, turn the thing on, and then walk around. That was the extent of the quick start guide. But the manual itself goes through all these features. Don't need to worry too much about the system settings. Like I said, we've tried to do the best job we could to make it easy for crews to use these things just like they were here. So I'll pause for a little bit. I've gone, gosh, we've already gone a half an hour. Look at that. If there's any additional questions real quick that we can work through, happy to answer what I can. But again, these mounts will be delivered with the aircraft. Again, very simple, slide in cradle, snaps in, has a little roller on top. It's really nice and convenient. Snaps right back out. But make sure that when you're mounting these in the aircraft that it's not impeding the safe operation of the aircraft at any time. So any quick questions, I can pause for just a little bit.
Yeah, there's one from Max Kiefer on the power in the 2.8 kilo.
Okay. And what was Max's question?
He wants to know, since 2.8 kilo is the old bird, and I suspect because of the question, it does not have a cigarette lighter, a DC outlet in the aircraft. Is there going to be any accommodation in that aircraft to DC to shore, or I mean to aircraft power the SpotX?
Well, that's an excellent question, Max. I wasn't aware, to be perfectly honest, that 2.8 kilo didn't have a cigarette adapter. So I think we just get rid of the airplane. Totally
Or
kidding.
until then, perhaps a rechargeable lithium battery to go with the SpotX in that aircraft.
And we can certainly take that into consideration, and it's a very acceptable option, right? But then somebody's got to make sure that they're maintaining that power bank to provide that external opportunity. But excellent point. Make sure that we get that notated so we can accommodate otherwise. But thanks for highlighting that. Anybody else? Will the SpotX remain in the aircraft? Yes. They should not be removed. We don't want them getting lost, which also means that we want you to make sure that they're secured in the aircraft. All of the more newer aircraft have a very nice glove box that we should be securing all of the accessories in. I haven't quite gotten as far as to find some small canvas type bags that we could potentially use to secure them, but they should remain in the aircraft just like the other spots did. But we want to make sure that obviously we're taking good care of them. We're not leaving them on the glare shield for prying eyes to see for those aircraft secured outside, as well as making sure that they're not enduring too much extra heat. We'd sure hate to see these things getting melted, but they're actually very, very durable. I don't know if anybody's given a good attempt at trying to break them, but they are water submersible. They're very durable. They're built for ruggedness, but you know, whatever we can do to protect them. Any other questions?
There's one from Greg Soder.
Okay.
Do FROs have easy access to the wheels up, wheels down, etc. fixed messages from Spot? Or do flights still need to text that information to the FROs?
We kind of
we kind of touched on that answer, but again, we shouldn't be texting from the aircraft in flight, but you know, certainly on the ground. But yes, we'll find ways to make sure that the FROs have the same ability that they had before with the old devices. Any others? All right, hearing, seeing none. I will be around. I'm still getting to learn these as well. I'm free to admit this old version was pretty monkey proof. I heard an old joke the other day, which is why I've been using the monkey term. It was about Chuck Yeager, why he never regretted being a Mercury 7 pilot, and he said because I didn't want to have to wipe the monkey crap off the seat before I flew it. So that's why I'm using that term quite often. It was a pretty funny joke that I heard. But the newer ones will take us a little bit of time to get up to speed, but I think once we get very familiar and once we get all the air crew and the communication groups trained on them, they'll become a much more valuable asset, given that we'll have the ability to communicate in that two-way fashion. So with that, if there's other questions that come up, I'm hanging around for the rest of today's session. If something comes up, just let us know and we'll try to get it answered. But for me, you'll see these distributed soon. I think Lance and Mike are going to work a strategy to get those out to the aircraft and then get them back in circulation. The old devices, some people probably have a question there. We're retaining them. They're not currently subscribed anymore, but we're retaining them. We'll likely use them in ground vehicles during missions. We got to just figure out a way to make Spot happy as well as ourselves happy on the subscription side. But these are actually cheaper to run over the long haul based on our subscription and the fact that, like I said, Spot Network is preferring these over their old. I guess the one last thing I didn't mention is you can pair this to your cell phone via Bluetooth. All of ours are Bluetooth enabled. You'd be able to see it as another device you could pair to it. If you download the Find Me Spot app on your phone, you could actually use your phone to do the communication. But given that these are going to be sitting right in front of the observer station, they're going to be the ones principally looking at them and using them. There really isn't that need, but it is a capability that we can also train to as well. But let's stick to trying to use the device natively if we possibly can to simplify it, because you know, Apple phones, Android phones, while they all might look and behave the same, it's just easier to have a standard. But that was one last thing I wanted to mention. So with that, throwing it back to whoever's next. I think it's Lieutenant Dyck.
Well, it is, and I just learned something. I am the producer for this, and producers have a hard time presenting. So, Major Colette, I just sent you my slides. Can you see if you've got them and can bring them up for me?
Sure, I'll do that.
I apologize, folks. I had no idea. I've never tried to present at the same time I'm producing.
Which address did you send those to?
I sent it to your Utah Wing account. I just sent it just probably 15 seconds ago when I figured out that I couldn't do what I needed to do.
Okay, I'll be back as soon as I have that ready to upload.
You don't have to upload it. Just open it on your screen and then share your screen and we'll be good. Oh gosh, it's now we need to do a dance here or something, Colonel Hess.
Well, like I said, if there's any additional questions while they're working out that logistics, shoot them this way.
Okay, I'm watching for that. While we're waiting for that, one of the things is I have all of the SpotX devices. If any of you are going to be, any of you who are close to any of those aircraft are going to be at the change of command ceremony on Saturday, I will have them with me and I can get them to you so you can get them to your aircraft. Perfect. There we go, Mike. I like that. Mike's desktop.
That picture almost looked like the flight we took, Mike.
Which
peak was that? Yeah, what is that back there?
Just, yeah, go into presentation mode on that, Mike, if you could.
Doesn't seem to like it. That's unfortunate.
Oh, I wonder if it's because he has an older, I didn't save it in an old version of PowerPoint. Well, you know what? If we can just do a slide by slide, we'll just go that way. Will it let you page through the slides, Mike? Maybe not.
I'm sorry, I have to close it to find a button to turn on the mic. But yeah, I'll just do the best I can and follow your lead.
Okay, thanks. I apologize for this. Just one of those technology issues I didn't know we'd have. Okay, so
well, let's see. Let's try this way.
Oh, same deal.
No, yeah, it doesn't like a full screen view for some reason.
Okay. Okay, so the things I want to talk about today, actually, oh, that's right, I haven't even sent it live yet. Let me do that. So otherwise they're just looking at Jason, which is fine too.
Thanks for saving it for me.
Okay, so go ahead and go to the next slide if you would, Mike. I want to talk about, most of you probably know, but I want to show you where the comm log is, how you get to it, and then also who updates that comm log normally. We'll talk a little bit about guidance on using the comm log, direction on using cap call signs in the comm log. It's not just specifically the comm log. And then the location of the new SpotX devices for the log and any questions you might have. I had in there I was going to give a demo, but since I can't share my screen, I won't be able to do that. So next slide, Mike. So when you sign into WMIRS and sign into a mission, you find the comm log in two places. If you expand the command portion, you'll find the comm log there. If you expand the operations portion, you'll find it there. They are the same comm log, just two different places to get it, depending on which part of the staff you're looking at. Typically, the comm log is updated by the communications staff, and that's the mission radio operator, the MRO, the communications leader, who is the CUL, or it could be the mission staff assistant who is working with the communications staff to help them with their load. Oh, somebody's got a question there. Oh, so Dave Rhodes was telling me my audio is much better. So last time we presented, I found out that my audio really stunk. So I bought a new device. So my camera and my audio are much better. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Mike. Okay, and this is actually something that I got from Mike Colette, and so I brought it into my presentation because it was something that we need to talk about. It has to do with call signs that we use within CAP. And this is coming for new, I want to read it, but the log entry in the comm log should pertain to the station call sign. So if the station making the entry is making an entry for your own station, such as you're the one on duty, you're coming on duty, you're opening the net or something like that, then it would be your tactical call sign. And if you're running out of, so it might be High Desert 8310. And then you could put in the remarks gold pointer net control, opening the net on R47 or whatever the comment needs to be. If the station making the entry is talking to another station, then it's that station's call sign that gets entered. For example, Cap 4323, High Desert 29, because in that case, the other station's functional call sign could also be entered. It may be Strike Team 1, since that's who it's pertaining to. For example, if your gold pointer net control and you're talking to Cap 4323, you would put Cap 4323. If you're talking to Strike Team 1, you'd enter Strike Team 1, Salt Lake Base, whoever it is. If you're closing the net, just like when you were opening the net, you would put your own tactical call sign. So it would be, you know, High Desert 8310 as well as gold pointer net control. And that way, we always have the log pertaining to the relevant party that is making the communication. And as Major Collette mentioned earlier, this comm log is actually can be used as a legal document. So for capturing information if there's an investigation. So please make sure when you're doing the comm log that you putting incorrect information, for example, locations and such. If you're not sure about something, find out what it is. Major Collette, one of the things that he does is he keeps a map of the area next to him so that when somebody calls something out, he can look at the map and see, oh, okay, yeah, that's here. Because we've had some comm log entries when we went back and looked at them, the locations that they put were incorrect, and I think it's because they heard something wrong. So please make sure that your comm log information is correct. Next slide, Mike.
Okay.
And by the way, Mike, if you have anything you want to add, please feel free to do that.
Okay.
Because you are way, a lot of expertise on this. So this slide is talking about the directions for call signs, and this actually comes from CAPR 100-3, and it talks about functional designator usage. Mike, do you want to just briefly talk about this? Because you can probably say it in a much better way than I can.
You mean functional versus tactical?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the tactical call sign, the High Desert, followed by the appropriate number, is the call sign assigned to us by the Air Force through Civil Air Patrol. So that's our official call sign for the station that we're operating. Could be a handheld radio, could be the radio at the wing headquarters. So each base station has a call sign, each vehicle has a call sign, each aircraft has a call sign. Now, we can use plain language functional call signs such as Strike Team 1 or Spanish Fork Base to describe the actual function of the station in a particular exercise or a particular mission. That's permitted, not for training, only in actual exercises or in actual missions. We can use a functional designator. We can't make up something cool like Pirate 45, that just happens to be the call sign of the Air National Guard. We have to make it functionally descriptive, such as Strike Team or Comm Team or Advanced Base or Spanish Fork Base or Mission Base. When we're using functional call signs on a voice station, we also have to give the tactical call sign at least once an hour, and that's something that we often forget. In the comm log, we're able to enter a functional call sign of a station we're talking to, such as Strike Team 1, because their official information is entered in the description of that team or that location when you're setting up the entries when you first log into the mission. So it's taken care of there. You can also, and let's see, I'll wait and see if you cover that before I touch on that part. So
I don't
the main
think
thing,
I will.
the main thing we
I know what
want to
you're going to
remember
talk
is,
about.
yeah, functional call signs, just use it to describe the actual function in plain language. And one thing we've standardized on in Utah Wing, the only time we call it mission base, like Salt Lake Mission Base or Spanish Fork Mission Base or Richfield Mission Base, is if the IC is physically located at that station. That's when we call it mission base. So that's my spiel on call signs.
Thank you. Now, the other thing is in the comm log, you can, and I didn't know this until I saw something from Major Collette, that you can actually enter those things in advance so that it's a drop down. And I thought that was pretty cool. We'll have to do some training on that sometime because I don't even know how to do that.
That's what I was really thinking about before, is you can pre-populate a pull-down menu just like you do for the sortie number. You can do a pull-down menu that you can do at the beginning of the mission or at the beginning of an operational period, and you can enter the call signs, and you can also enter the radio channel numbers. So then you can just pull those down and don't have to play around with them. The one thing I'll add that again, if you touch on it, I apologize. The one thing I found really, if we get busy missions, when we get lots of sorties, it starts becoming a little hard to track the call sign, like an aircraft call sign, with the sortie number. You know, in the old days, we could run around the corner at the wing building and look at the whiteboard, but I always make a little list for myself of the call sign and the sortie number, the ground sortie number or the air sortie number. So if somebody calls in with their radio call sign, I have an instant reference on which sortie number to pull down from the pull down menu to make that log entry, just to save time.
Yeah, thank you, because I know I've seen some entries where, and you have to make sure that air, you know, for example, an aircraft, if it's been on multiple sorties, make sure you're putting the right sortie number in, because it may be a different one than the last time you logged that in the comm log. So thank you. Okay, next slide. So where do you find the SpotX messages? You know, Colonel Hess talked about these messages coming from the SpotX back to us. Well, what they're actually done is they're sent to an email address called spotx@utahwing.cap.gov. And what you'll do is log into that Outlook account on the web, and that's where you will see those messages show up. I wish I could show you the demo I had, because I have several messages out there. When it is time for you to work on a mission or to need to get access to these SpotX messages, then you'll be provided with the login credentials for that. Are there any questions about, I think next slide just is questions. So does anybody have any questions about the comm log, the SpotX messages that come into the comm log? If you want to see what they look like, reach out to me and I can help you get into the account so you can see that, or I can forward you some messages from them. I really like the fact that you can put the coordinates in that Colonel Hess was talking about. When you select the GPS coordinates, part of the message is your location information. It gives your altitude and your lat long. So that will be very, very beneficial for the comm log folks to be able to put that in as a actual position, which typically we aren't able to do that because we don't have that information accurate enough.
And make sure your altitude is higher than your position.
Well,
general rule of safety.
Yeah, the other thing I found, Colonel Hess, is when it sends the altitude, I believe the altitude it's sending is above sea level, because when I did it from my office here, it said I was at 4,800 feet, and I knew I wasn't getting a nosebleed. So,
Right.
so just know that it's above sea level, not above ground level. Okay. Any other questions? I don't see any. Well, let me send myself up. Send myself live. Thank you very much again. We have, oh gosh, I forgot to look up the next one. We have our next one coming up on, Major Colette, do you have that in front of you? I apologize. I normally have that, but I'm not normally presenting too.
Yeah, I've got it here. The next session, section 6.
It's our last one, isn't it?
April 15th. It's at 1930. By the way, can you hear me okay still?
Yeah, hear you fine. Perfect.
Yeah, on April 15th, so 2 weeks from today at 1930, Chuck Broodcall is going to present some forward-looking information on our HF operations. He's on the National Communications staff. He is the Operations Division Head for the Civil Air Patrol Communications cadre. And when you see him present, and he'll have in his background his station, his Radio Shack. It's pretty impressive. He's a very, very talented, very experienced HF operator, and he'll be giving us some input from the national staff on where we're headed with some of the new technologies in HF communications, just as we're going to be invoking some new technologies with the VHF communications. So coming up in 2 weeks.
Thank you very much. So hopefully everybody who's here will be able to join us for that. It will be a great presentation. And thank you very much for attending tonight. And thank you, Colonel Hess and Major Colette. And Major Colette, that was a last minute thing. I was able to pull him in, and that was very beneficial, I think, at least for me it was. So have a great night and keep safe. Okay, the event is closed now.
Okay. Well,
I made the mistake.
everybody.
I made the mistake before of telling it to end, and then I kept talking, and I found out that all of that was on the recording.